Chapter 2477. Elder T was panting heavily as his face turned pale. That's right, young lady, leave on your own. You will definitely be able to leave the Miao tribe. Let's leave together. Yi Qing Luo interrupted their persuasion without hesitation. Don't you believe in my ability? I know you're very powerful. But no matter how powerful you are alone, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Elder T's face was filled with sweat from nervousness and running. His moist eyes were filled with emotion. Little girl, it's enough that you've done so much for us 2 old fellows who don't even know each other. We know that you have a kind heart, but we shouldn't have harmed you just to survive. From the moment you chose to believe me in the Bu family village, we are no longer strangers. Yi Qing Luo lowered her voice and said gently, in the Bu family village you believed me once. Believe me again today, I will definitely bring you away. He is still waiting for you. Grandma Bu's voice choked as she called out this name. Tears rolled down from her eyes. We are ordinary people, following you will only implicate you. Elder T hugged his old wife tightly. Me and this old wife have lived for more than half a year. Even if we die here, it doesn't matter. Before I die, I'm already satisfied that I can wait for this old wife. I won't leave you alone. If you don't want to implicate me, then listen to me. Yi Qing Luo held on to each of them and used her own strength to support the 2 old men. Go. If it was somewhere else, Yi Qing Luo would definitely let Shiju out and carry the 2 old men away. But in the Miao village cave, it was strange and eerie. That pair of jade eyes, the big bloody mouth, the roar of a wild beast. All of these were deeply imprinted in Yi Qing Luo's mind. She couldn't summon teas and was worried that Shiju would be affected by that pair of jade eyes. Especially, summoning Shiju would expose their whereabouts. Yi Qing Luo could only use her own strength to support the 2 old men as they left. Not even a few steps away, Yi Qing Luo's ears twitched. Following that, her eyes congealed slightly. Someone was approaching. Did Yuji discover that she had made use of steel to create the illusion of their corpses? Then used the blink movement secret art to escape the dungeon? She purposely poisoned her robe. Once Yuji got close, the fragrance from the robe would seep into his skin. Yuji will definitely be poisoned. It was impossible for him to catch up to them so quickly. However, the aura behind him was getting closer and closer. Yi Qing Luo didn't have any other choice as her gaze swiftly surveyed the surroundings and directly headed towards the nearest corner in a flash. She brought the 2 elders of the Bu family and hid in a dark corner. The sound of a group of orderly footsteps could be heard. Yi Qing Luo sneaked a glance from the corner of her eyes. Sure enough, it was someone dressed as a Miao guard. It seemed that her escape with the Bu family's 2 elders had been discovered. Yuji didn't chase after them himself. This meant that he was indeed poisoned. These people must have been sent by Miao Yixiong to find Miao Rongrong's antidote. If Miao Yixiong was searching for her, she still had the confidence to win. He was sure that Yuji was poisoned. He couldn't do anything to her for the time being. Yi Qing Luo's heart relaxed a little. Suddenly there was a pulling force behind her. Granny Bu softly exclaimed, "Old man." Chapter 2478. Behind Yi Qing Luo was originally a wall. Even if he fell, he would only fall to the ground. But Yi Qing Luo only felt that her body was empty. Then his body began to fall rapidly. Yi Qing Luo's reaction was swift as she grabbed Grandma Bu's hand tightly. Granny Bu held Elder T's hand tightly. The 3 of them descended at an extremely fast speed. Yi Qing Luo was adjusting her breathing and releasing her profound energy while sensing the surrounding atmosphere, making preparations to descend any time. The more he fell, the more Yi Qing Luo thought about it, the more astonished she became. This hole was at least 1,000 meters wide. How could there be such a deep cave under the Hmong stockade village? They continued to fall for a while. Yi Qing Luo was keenly aware of the changes in the airflow. She immediately released her profound energy to slow down the speed of their descent. Then he summoned Shiju. Shiju's massive body caught the 3 of them firmly. Very soon Shiju landed on the ground. It was pitch black all around. The 2 elders of the Bu family simply couldn't see what was underneath. They were still in a state of shock, their bodies trembling as they constantly groped for the things beneath them. He only felt a ball of soft fur. Everything's fine now. Yi Qing Luo gently held the 2 elderly's hands and comforted them softly. The darkness did not hinder her at all. Yi Qing Luo could see her surroundings clearly. This was an oval-shaped cave. There was nothing inside and it was completely empty. She jumped down from Shiju's body and took out a luminous pearl. The cave was not spacious. A luminous pearl was enough to illuminate the surroundings. When the light returned to their eyes. When the Tubu family elders saw the thing they were sitting on, it was a huge black leopard and they almost fainted from fright. Luckily Elder T's reaction was fast. Seeing Shiju's huge head rubbing against Yiqing Luo's arm bit by bit, he heaved a sigh of relief and pulled the old woman into his arms to pacify her. Old woman is all right. This is a pet raised by a young lady. It's all right, it's all right. The relationship between an old couple was as beautiful as their first love. Just rest on Shiju's back for a while. She's a battle-type war pet and can protect you, don't be afraid. Yiqing Luo patted Shiju's head gently and immediately walked away. Shiju took small steps as it followed behind Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo took a look at the surroundings. There were no traces of any mechanism in the surroundings. Could it be that this place was really just a cave? Were they going to die in this cave? Yiqing Luo calculated in her mind the distance from the top to here. The idea of using profound energy or relying on Shiju to fly up. It was obviously impossible. They would definitely fall midway due to exhaustion. Young lady, are you looking for an exit? Elder T was carried on Shiju's back as he followed Yiqing Luo for a few rounds and asked hesitantly. Yiqing Luo nodded. Look at the ground, there. Elder T pointed to the place where they had just fallen. I remember that I saw something there, but it was very blurry. I couldn't see it clearly. The ground? Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. She only cared about looking for traces on the surrounding walls. But he forgot to look at the ground. Following the direction that Elder T pointed, Yiqing Luo quickly walked over. As expected, when they fell the place where they were blocked by Shiju's enormous body, there was a very complicated but very obvious mark. However, perhaps too much time had passed. The ground was very dirty. It was impossible to clearly see what these marks were. Yiqing Luo squatted down and touched it with her hand. Chapter 2479. There was indeed something strange about the ground. I'll hold this pearl for you. Elder T saw Yiqing Luo's solemn expression and wanted to do something for her. Yiqing Luo didn't refuse and placed the luminous pearl in Elder T's hand. Elder T held the luminous pearl and stood by Yiqing Luo's side, trying his best to make the luminous pearls light so that Yiqing Luo could see the ground more clearly. With one hand free, Yiqing Luo began to use both hands to feel the concave feeling of the ground. Her fingertips brushed past and her mind followed this outline, slowly forming a picture in her mind. This concave outline was very big. It occupied at least 1/3 of the cave's terrain. Such a big outline. She had just run several laps in this cave and actually didn't find this outline. Yiqing Luo secretly ridiculed herself in her heart. When did she become so careless? After describing it bit by bit, the outline that her palm touched gradually formed in her mind. It was an extremely huge beast. Yiqing Luo hadn't been able to figure out the specific shape. But Yiqing Luo could be sure that this was a beast whose size was at least bigger than Shiju, Qiqi or Qian. But she couldn't be sure. Was it the carvings on the ground that carved this beast into such a huge one? Perhaps to figure out the overall shape of this beast. Then she could leave this cave. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly. Her hands that were exploring also sped up and began to explore the interior of the beast. This was the head, eyes, nose, mouth. Yiqing Luo touched down bit by bit while forming the shape of the beast's head in her mind. Her fingers suddenly touched a sharp place. A sharp pain came. She trembled slightly and quickly retracted her hand. A hole was cut on her fingertip. Fresh blood gushed out. She looked down and looked at the place where her hand was cut. It was the beast's totem's teeth. The sharp teeth were still stained with her blood. That drop of bright red blood made this carved beast seem to add a bit of vitality. This thought made Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly tightened. In a trance she once again saw that pair of green eyes. The bloody mouth that was stained with blood let out a low roar. The eyes of the totem imprinted on the ground flickered with a faint green color. Little girl, little girl. Suddenly he heard Elder T's urgent call. Then his body shook violently. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes with heavy eyelids. She then met Elder T's worried eyes. Little girl, what's wrong? Are you okay? Yiqing Luo's breathing gradually calmed down. His eyes gradually regained their clarity. What happened to me? Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as she recalled that pair of jade-green eyes which she had faintly seen earlier, and her heart constricted tightly. You just... Elder T hesitated as if he was choosing his words carefully. You looked like you were possessed. You stared at the ground and looked like you were in a trance. You didn't seem to hear me when I talked to you. It was the same thing again. Earlier, when he had followed Third Elder Miao to the dungeon, he had encountered such a situation. When Yiqing Luo saw that pair of jade-green eyes on the surrounding walls, it had happened before. Now, it was that pair of green eyes again. It was a bloody mouth. It was a wild beast's roar. What on earth was going on? Chapter 2480. Why did the Miao tribe treat the cave as a forbidden place? Especially the totem on the wall. She couldn't even mention it. Third Elder Miao's fear towards the cave, Yiqing Luo could feel it clearly. So, this totem, this beast, what did it represent to the Miao tribe? What secret was it hiding? She could figure this out. Not only could she leave this godforsaken place. Moreover, she could coerce the Miao tribe to follow her to the East Continent to help Long Yunzhan suppress the poison. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, suppressing the messy thoughts in her mind. She smiled at Elder T and shook her head. I'm fine, just a little tired from staring at this totem, so I took a rest. I have some clues now. After confirming that Yiqing Luo was fine, Elder T was relieved. Yiqing Luo placed all her attention on the totem on the ground. Her palm followed the internal contour of the beast, confirming the body structure of the beast bit by bit. Perhaps she was highly focused. She didn't see it. The drop of blood on the totem's tooth was disappearing bit by bit. At the same time, the totem's protruding eyes. Bit by bit, it shone with a faint jade luster. Under the dazzling luminous pearl. Extremely weak. Iluo, how dare you trespass the Miao tribe's forbidden area? Suddenly, a deep and resounding roar resounded from within the cave. The young lady who was groping the totem on the ground frowned slightly when she heard the voice. It's coming. It's coming. Elder T's hand, which was holding the luminous pearl, trembled. Yiqing Luo raised her head and saw that there wasn't any mechanism at all. On the wall of the deep and long underground cave, a huge worm-shaped hole which was about the size of an adult man's body was reflected in her eyes. It was said to be a worm-shaped hole. It was indeed a giant worm. Its body was a giant hole. But the antennae on its head and the thin black legs were still swaying randomly. A figure walked out from the body of the giant worm. It was the Miao tribe leader Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong's gaze fell on Yiqing Luo. When he saw that Yiqing Luo was still alive, his eyes were burning with passion. Yi Luo, it's really you. This forbidden land of the Miao tribe was a taboo that the Miao tribe had guarded for hundreds of years. Once someone approached the forbidden area, they would be killed. Miao Yixiong could use the goo worms left there to sense the aura changes in the forbidden area. Yi Luo was the only one who trespassed into the Miao tribe. Therefore, when it sensed that there was a human aura in the forbidden land, it immediately went into hiding. Miao Yixiong did not hesitate and directly used the Miao tribe's most taxing and most harmful teleportation goo worm to teleport to the forbidden area. As expected, it was Yi Luo. He was alive. Still alive. The expression on Miao Yixiong's face was gradually tainted with madness and joy. Yi Luo, give me the antidote, give me the antidote. Yiqing Luo picked her ears as her face was filled with impatience. He was about to crack the secret of the totem. But he was interrupted by Miao Yixiong. No matter who it was, at this moment they would be so angry that they wanted to slap this person to death. However, Miao Yixiong only had the antidote in his heart. Didn't you want the coins? I'll give it to you. However much you want, I'll give it to you. As long as you give me the antidote. I will absolutely not interfere in the matter between you and Yuji. Miao Yixiong said anxiously. The eagerness in his eyes was exceptionally obvious. Chapter 2481. Yiqing Luo. Was there something wrong with him? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she looked at him impatiently. Miao clan leader, how big of a face do you have after finding someone to kill me? You still tried in vain to buy the antidote from me? As she spoke, the disdain and mockery in her eyes deepened. If it was before, I would have been quite willing to make this deal with you. However, I'm not in a good mood right now, so there's no room for discussion. You. Miao Yixiong trembled with anger. But when he thought of the poison in Miao Rongrong's body, he could only suppress his anger. After the earlier scene where Yiqing Luo almost died in Yuji's hands, Miao Yixiong was now a little paranoid. He absolutely could not let Yiqing Luo die. He absolutely had to make Yiqing Luo hand over the antidote. Yi Luo, Yuji has already been poisoned. I can hand him over to you and you can deal with him as you wish. Miao Yixiong suddenly recalled the grudge between Yuji and Yiqing Luo. Do you think you can control him? Yiqing Luo looked at Miao Yixiong in amusement, unable to imagine how this Miao tribe's leader could be so naive. Miao Yixiong knew how strong Yuji was. That was why he specially invited Yuji to deal with her. Now that he felt that Yuji was poisoned, he wanted to decide whether Yuji would live or die. Miao Yixiong's eyes turned cold. He clenched his fists and said, "He's been poisoned by my heart-devouring parasite. As long as he's 10 feet away from me, he'll be devoured from the inside out." Yiqing Luo raised her brows. This Miao Yixiong still had some brains at the crucial moment. He knew how to use goo poison to threaten secluded silence. Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of something as her lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. "Tenjiang," she chuckled. "This cave seems to be more than 10 feet away from the surface." Miao Yixiong's face turned pale. That is to say, Yuji's internal organs have already been devoured by the heart-devouring worm. Coupled with the corrosion of the poison Tiske. Yiqing Luo continued as she shook her head. "He's already dead, how are you going to hand him over to me?" Miao Yixiong's face alternated between green and white. His body stiffened and trembled slightly. The veins on his forehead bulged one by one. It was obvious that he was furious. Yiqing Luo leisurely stood up as her hand gently caressed Shiju's head. Her long and narrow eyes were slightly curved. He had a leisurely look on his face. It was as if the person trapped in the Miao tribe and unable to leave was not her at all. Miao Yixiong restrained his emotions. His chest heaved up and down. For the future. For the future. He needed Yi Luo's help. He had only been humiliated by Yi Luo. Once he got his hands on the antidote, he could torture Yi Luo however he wanted. Just as he was thinking of softening his tone and discussing the conditions with Yiqing Luo, Miao Yixiong's eyes widened unconsciously. He froze on the spot. He stared foolishly at Yiqing Luo's back without blinking. His face was filled with astonishment and disbelief. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she carefully turned her head and looked behind her. A wave of jade-green light covered the sky and covered the earth. In an instant it covered her eyes. She felt a stinging pain in her eyes and her body swayed for a moment. She couldn't help but close her eyes and raise her hand to block the intense green brilliance from hurting her eyes. Yiqing Luo didn't see. The place where she was standing was right under her feet in the center of the totem. Rays of jade-green light followed the outline of the totem, as it continued to extend. Chapter 2482. This scene was clearly reflected in Miao Yixiong's eyes. He was frightened. He staggered backwards, not daring to touch that little bit of jade-green light. Seal. The seal has been unlocked. The seal that had been sealed for 700 years has been unlocked. His voice was hoarse and filled with fear. Yiqing Luo was shrouded in the jade-green light, but she didn't feel anything special. Only her eyes were pierced by the light and could only open a slit. What entered her eyes was still jade-green. She couldn't see anything else. However, since Miao Yixiong was not far away, she could still hear the words he shouted clearly. Seal? What did Miao Yixiong mean by seal? Was this piece of jade-green light the so-called seal? What was sealed in this cave? Gradually, the surrounding light finally dissipated. Her vision was soothed and Yiqing Luo slowly opened her eyes. When she saw the scene below her feet, even she was stunned. Only to see the totem outline under her feet was flashing, emitting jade-green light. The light wasn't strong. She hadn't had time to take a closer look at the totem carved on the ground. What kind of beast was it? Suddenly, there was a turbulence under her feet. Yiqing Luo's body was unstable as she swayed slightly. The totem under her feet actually tore open a crack from the center. The crack gradually widened. Yiqing Luo immediately leaped up. By the time she stood in a safe place, the crack on the ground had already split open by more than half. Under the crack there was a piece of jade-green light and nothing could be seen clearly. The crack was about half the size of the totem. The entire cave's turbulence stopped. The cave fell into a strange silence. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she stared at the crack on the ground, trying to see clearly what was under the crack. But other than a piece of jade green, there was still a piece of jade green. Yi Luo. Stop. You stop. Suddenly Miao Yixiong's anxious roar came from behind. That voice had a trace of panic. Yi Luo, this seal must not be unlocked. Once it is unlocked, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected. Yiqing Luo was about to ask what kind of seal it was when she heard that. Two cries of suppressed fear could be heard. Then came Miao Yixiong's furious roar. These two old farts are now in my hands. If you don't want them to die, stop. The two elders of the Bu family. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Wasn't Shijue protecting the two elders of the Bu family? With Miao Yixiong's ability, it was impossible for him to take the two Bu elders away from Shiju. Yiqing Luo immediately turned around and looked towards Miao Yixiong's direction. He saw Miao Yixiong grabbing a man's neck with one hand, his expression sinister. Shiju, on the other hand, stood at the side, its black fur standing on end as it bared its teeth and blew at Miao Yixiong. Shiju. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. Hearing its master's voice, Shiju's arrogance instantly dropped as it whimpered a few times towards Yiqing Luo in grievance. It's not its fault, Grandma Bu's neck was being grabbed. Although Miao Yixiong didn't use much strength, but she was after all an ordinary person and he was already old, so his words sounded weak. It's us, ourselves, we don't want to drag you down, so we left its back hoping to let it help you. So sorry, young lady, we've dragged you down again. Elder T was filled with guilt. Chapter 2483. The Miao tribe's seal was released. That would definitely be disadvantageous to the young lady. A Miao tribe leader plus the so-called seal. The two Bu elders were worried that the young lady couldn't handle it alone. So they thought of using this battle pet to help the young lady. Whoever knew, they ended up dragging the young lady down. To let the young lady be coerced by the Miao tribe leader because of them. It's all right. Yiqing Luo spoke softly as she comforted the two Bu elders. Don't be afraid, he won't touch you. Whether he moves or not depends on your performance. Miao Yixiong finally had a hostage to restrain Yi Luo and heaved a sigh of relief. But at the same time there were some doubts in his heart. Wasn't it said that Yi Luo was someone from another continent? Why was he so familiar with the Bu family village? Everyone could see that. Yiqing Luo was very concerned about the two Bu elders. She didn't even hesitate to enter the Miao tribe alone to save them. In his mind he suddenly remembered what third elder Miao had said before. Yi Luo was most likely related to the missing Miao tribe traitor in the Bu family village. This thought made Miao Yixiong's expression congeal. He raised his malicious eyes and looked at Yiqing Luo coldly. Leave the seal and come over here. He paused and hurriedly shook his head. Wait, don't come over. You. Stand over there. Miao Yixiong pointed to a place opposite him. Miao Yixiong knew that he wasn't Yi Luo's opponent. If Yi Luo went near him, there was a high possibility that he would save the hostage. This was his only bargaining chip now. Yiqing Luo didn't make any sarcastic remarks this time. Instead she directly walked towards the direction that Miao Yixiong pointed. Seeing Yiqing Luo being so obedient, Miao Yixiong heaved a sigh of relief. Before he opened his mouth he was interrupted by Yiqing Luo coldly. You want the antidote? Antidote, naturally. Miao Yixiong's words were swallowed back as he answered Yiqing Luo's question. But immediately his expression suddenly turned gloomy. But, young lady, the bargaining chip is in my hands now, so you should be the one begging me. If you want these two people to live, then listen to me obediently. Miao Yixiong's tone was extremely arrogant. As though he wanted to get back at Yiqing Luo for all the humiliation he had suffered previously. Right, go ahead. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she generously spread out her hands. She moved. Miao Yixiong cautiously grabbed the necks of the Bu family's elders and took a few steps back. Don't move. I won't move. Yiqing Luo smiled even more indifferently. But the more she laughed, the more she laughed. In Miao Yixiong's eyes, the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Now you know how to be obedient. In order to suppress the strange feeling in his heart, Miao Yixiong focused his attention on Yiqing Luo. This arrogant little girl was now so obedient. It was enough to prove that the two elders of the Bu family were very important to her. His eyes turned cold and suddenly he sneered, Little girl, I am not a narrow-minded person. How about you kneel down in front of me now and kowtow to me twice, then the matter of you poisoning Rong Rong, trespassing into the Miao tribe and even breaking the seal that the Miao tribe had guarded for 700 years, will be written off. No. No way. The two elders of the Bu family immediately stopped him when they heard that. How could they possibly let the young lady kneel down for them? Although they had not spent much time with the young lady. But they were clear. The young lady was an extremely confident person. It was absolutely impossible for her to lower her head to anyone. Such a proud and unyielding young lady. Chapter 2484. Most importantly. Even if Yiqing Luo was willing, they weren't willing. Shut up. Miao Yixiong shouted coldly as his hands exerted more strength. Bu Lao Air coughed violently as both of their hands tried to break the fingers on their necks. Looking at the two of them who were like ants being pinched in her palms, struggling on their deathbed. Miao Yixiong finally had the pleasure of being able to hold his head high in the air. Thinking of how he had begged Yiqing Luo several times to give him the antidote. Thinking of Yiqing Luo's high and mighty attitude of not giving him any charity. Miao Yixiong's eyes were burning with excitement. Kneel down. Quickly kneel down. No. No. Before Elder T could finish his words, his neck was strangled by a force. He cried out miserably as his body stiffened and his struggling stopped as his eyelids started to roll. Yi Luo, if you don't kneel down, I will kill this old man and then this old woman. Miao Yixiong couldn't wait to see Yiqing Luo being trampled under his feet. He was the dignified Miao clan leader. He had always been high up. How could he suffer a loss in the hands of a young lady time and time again? He wanted to destroy this humiliation. He was still the noble Miao clan leader. Yiqing Luo's gaze was fixed on Elder T without blinking. Looking at Elder T's pale face and eyelids rolling outwards, as though he was on his last breath. Her gaze turned colder and colder. That gaze made Miao Yixiong's heart tremble for no reason. How dare you look at me with such a gaze? Miao Yixiong instinctively took a few steps back. You're not allowed to look. I order you to kneel on the ground and look at me pitifully while wagging your tail. He was shouting so fiercely. But his hands had subconsciously loosened the grip on the two old men. How would he dare to kill the two Bu Lao heir? This was his only bargaining chip. Why, Miao clan leader, you've captured 2 hostages and this is your only request? Yiqing Luo finally opened her mouth. Her voice was cold and no one could tell the emotions in her words. Miao Yixiong clenched his teeth as he growled fiercely, right? This is my only request. Are you going to kneel or not? I won't kneel. Yiqing Luo spat out 2 decisive words. Good, very good. You don't want to kneel? If you don't kneel, I'll kill him. Miao Yixiong's eyes were red with anger. He raised the arm that was strangling Elder T. He threatened, hoping to see a flustered expression on Yiqing Luo's face. But Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she smiled gently. Miao tribe leader, do you really dare to attack? Her smile was filled with disdain and ridicule. Her long and narrow eyes slowly turned contemptuous. As long as something happens to them, the next person to die will be you. Her voice was soft. It was a very unusual conversational tone. Every word was like a hammer to Miao Yixiong's heart. He was so terrified that even his pores were dilating and his body was trembling. Miao Yixiong knew this very well. Yi Luo was serious. She had the absolute strength and confidence to kill him. Moreover, if he was the slightest bit careless, there was a high possibility that Yi Luo could save the 2 Bu Lao heir from his hands. After thinking for a moment, Miao Yixiong's arrogance gradually dissipated. His 2 hands loosened from the 2 Bu Lao heirs' necks and grabbed their shoulders instead. Chapter 2485. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. This Miao tribe leader was really rather adaptable to circumstances. He could be high and mighty in an instant. And he could be humble in an instant. Freely retreating and advancing. Suddenly, she understood the reason why he was able to sit on the position of tribe leader for such a long time. After all, if one was shameless, he would be invincible. Seeing Yiqing Luo staring at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile, Miao Yixiong felt goosebumps. He understood her emotions and moved her with reason. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. What you just opened is the seal that the Miao tribe had been guarding for 700 years. Luckily, this seal is not completely opened and there's still one last layer of seal left. If the last layer of seal is opened, not only the Miao tribe will be in danger, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected and affected. Both of us are injured, so there's no way you can leave this place. So now I should have the conditions to discuss the deal with you. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as her gaze slowly fell onto that crack which had split open. What kind of seal is this? Yiqing Luo didn't answer Miao Yixiong's deal but asked the doubt in her heart. The Miao tribe's seal. Why would it have such a huge impact on her? Miao Yixiong frowned as he felt displeased, but he had no choice but to answer. I'm not too sure what it is exactly. This is the ancestral order passed down by our ancestors. Every generation of tribe leader has to do their best to protect this seal from being opened. Yiqing Luo nodded her head thoughtfully. Yi Luo, if you want to leave this forbidden grounds, only I can help you. So if you give me the antidote, I will let the three of you leave immediately and promise that I will not find any trouble with anyone in the Bu family village. Miao Yixiong saw that Yiqing Luo wasn't going to mention about the deal, so he might as well tell her his conditions directly. Why should I believe you? Yiqing Luo shrugged. You hate me and need the Bu family village's people to find the traitor. If I give you the antidote, will you really let the three of us leave? Miao Yixiong's eyes flashed as his expression gradually turned cold. You can only choose to believe me. He paused for a moment. The expression on his face gradually became ferocious, adding a hint of madness. Yi Luo, you should know that if Miao Rongrong dies, she won't be able to become the Holy Maiden and I'll be ruined. Since I'm ruined, why don't we all die together? Yiqing Luo could tell that when Miao Yixiong said these words, his eyes were almost bloodshot red, filled with madness and a trace of chilliness. He was serious. If he destroys himself, in that case he might as well destroy everything. Yiqing Luo scoffed in disdain. A selfish person like Miao Yixiong was truly cold-blooded and emotionless. He had asked her for the antidote time and time again. It was not for Miao Rongrong's life. It was because Miao Rongrong was about to become the holy maiden of the Miao tribe. If he was destroyed, might as well destroy everything and be buried with him? Little girl, now, you only have one choice. You can only choose to believe me. Miao Yixiong didn't care about what Yiqing Luo was thinking about him. You must know that your ability alone is strong, but with these two burdens dragging you down, don't even think of leaving the Miao tribe easily. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. Her eyes were filled with a chilly intent. After some time, her eyes swept past the two Bu family elders and immediately closed her eyes as she opened her mouth. Ah. Chapter 2486. Granny Bu's body smashed heavily into the stone wall beside her. The old lady's weak body was trembling in pain from this sudden fall. And the next moment, Elder T took this opportunity to shake off Miao Yixiong's arm and rushed to Grandma Bu's side. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. She didn't expect them to use such a method to escape from Miao Yixiong's restraint. She hurriedly looked at Shiju. Shiju understood, and its huge body flew towards the direction of the two Bu elders. Miao Yixiong was shocked. The two Bu elders were his only bargaining chips with Yiqing Luo. He absolutely could not let them return to Yiqing Luo's side. He didn't have a second chance to restrain Yiqing Luo. However, what no one had expected was, after the two Bu elders broke free from Miao Yixiong's restraint, they didn't escape towards Yiqing Luo's direction. They headed towards the crack, which was emitting a faint green light not too far away. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she suddenly realized something. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu, you don't do anything silly, I said I can bring you. Young lady. Elder T, who was standing in front of the crack, stopped in his tracks. That wrinkled face revealed a comfortable smile for the first time since today's thrilling journey. His hand in Grandma Bu's hand held tightly. Don't come over. He looked at Miao Yixiong without a trace of fear. Come over and we'll jump down. Miao Yixiong stopped in his tracks. Shiju also stopped. Two people and one beast stared intently at the two Bu elders. Shiju stopped because he was afraid that something would happen to them. And Miao Yixiong stopped because he was afraid that he would lose the bargaining chip to restrain Yiqing Luo. Grandpa Bu. Yiqing Luo's fingers curled tightly. You come with Shiju, I can bring you away. The two Bu elders looked at each other and smiled. Their brows were filled with gentleness. Young lady, thank you for everything you have done for the Bu family village. Thank you for caring for me and old madam. Elder T smiled contentedly as he said every word. His voice was on the verge of choking. We don't want to be your burden. We don't want to see you suffer because of us. As Elder T spoke, tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes. You are a good girl with a kind heart. We can't bear to see such a good girl like you suffer for us. Grandpa Boo. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened. She who had never been rich in emotions, couldn't help but feel a sour feeling at the corner of her eyes. I'm not making things difficult for you and you're not my burden. In the beginning she had helped them in the Boo family village. It was because the simplicity of the Boo family village had moved her. He was used to the darkness of the world. She could see a trace of clean color which made her feel very comfortable. Later she came to the Miao tribe and saved the 2 elders of the Boo family. Part of the reason was because of Miao Yi. But more than that, it was because she really felt sorry for the Boo family's elders. She didn't like to meddle in other people's business. However, he was not a cold and heartless person. She was serious about saving the 2 elders of the Boo family and bringing them away from the Miao tribe. Chapter 2487. I think the old man should have told you about our matters. Back then, for the future of the next generation, I brought my family and moved to Qinghua City. Our village, at least 30 over people, brought their families along with them. But we had just left the Boo family village when we were stopped by the Miao people. Grandma Boo stared at Miao Yixiong with her teary eyes. Her eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. The Miao people carried out a brutal massacre on us without any explanation. The 30 over people who left the Boo family village, from the elderly to the newborn babies, all died tragically in the hands of the Miao people. Those people were the hope of the Boo family village, the few youngsters. All died. Died in front of my eyes. My son and daughter are all dead. Only I survived. Shut up. Miao Yixiong's heart trembled. What he was afraid of was not Grandma Boo's hatred towards him. But he was afraid that Grandma Boo's words would bring out Yiqing Luo's hatred towards the Miao people and seek revenge for Grandma Boo. Grandma Boo gave a low laugh. Her laughter was filled with pain and mournfulness. Miao Yixiong. What people do, the heavens are watching. It's not that revenge is not coming, it's just that it's not time yet. You killed so many people in my Boo family village in the future. Don't even think about having a peaceful day. Miao Yixiong, the old man and I swear on our lives that even if we become ghosts, we will never let you off. We will turn into malicious spirits and haunt you forever. She laughed. The hoarse and aged voice had a hint of delight in it. She laughed for a long time. She slowly looked towards Yiqing Luo. The craziness on her face slowly turned gentle. Young lady. I'm sorry, really sorry. If it's possible, I hope you can avenge those innocent villagers in the Boo family village so that we can die without regrets. Grandma Boo. Yiqing Luo understood Grandma Boo's current feelings. Seeing her own kin, her neighbors and good friends who had accompanied her for decades, die in front of her. No matter who it was, no one would be able to tolerate it. Grandma Boo had endured for such a long time. That was her biggest limit. If it wasn't for Yi, I would have died when the Boo family village was massacred. She is a pitiful lady without parents and no one to rely on. If it's possible, please help us take good care of her. Grandma Boo. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. She shouted at Shijue, Shijue, quick! Bring Grandpa Boo and Grandma Boo over. Roar. Shiju roared, and its body turned into a bolt of black lightning, rushing toward the Boo family's 2 elders. However, in the end, Shijue was a step too late. The Boo family's 2 elders had already made up their minds. He didn't give Yiqing Luo any chance to persuade him to stay. At the moment when Shiju pounced over, they clasped their hands and looked at each other. Her eyes were filled with a warm smile. Then he leaped into the crack and both of them fell into the jade-green light. In an instant he disappeared without a trace. Grandpa Boo. Grandma Boo. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she stared blankly at that crack. The 2 elders of the Boo family didn't want to be a burden to her. Resolutely he chose death. They knew very well that in this battle between Gu masters and Xian cultivators, they were ordinary people. He would only be a burden. Therefore, in order to let her not feel guilty, in order to let her leave with peace of mind. Chapter 2488. No. No. Miao Yixiong was filled with terror as he staggered backwards a few steps. His back was plastered tightly against the wall. Beads of cold sweat rolled down his forehead. His entire body was drenched in sweat. He who had lost his bargaining chip and hostage. How was he going to negotiate with Yi Qingluo? Especially, his attitude earlier had completely infuriated Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo wanted to kill him. In this place, this forbidden place which was isolated from the Miao tribe. He had no way to resist at all. Especially, earlier before Grandma Bu died, she specially requested Yi Qingluo to avenge the people in the Bu family village. Yi Qingluo was so concerned about that old fellow in the Bu family village. She would definitely kill him. The more Miao Yixiong thought, the more terrified he was. His entire body was trembling with fear. No way. He absolutely could not sit still and wait for death. He was the clan leader of the Miao tribe. How could he lose to a young lady? Miao Yixiong's vision slowly shifted to the side, where the worm-shaped hole was. A plan was formed in his mind. Just at this moment, there was a violent tremor in the hole. In an instant, rays of light that were as sharp as blades rippled out from the surroundings like waves. Boom, boom, boom. A few loud sounds were heard as the ground shook. The four walls, which were as hard as iron, were sliced apart layer by layer. The jade-green rays on the broken walls were piercingly cold. Extremely neat. This violent tremor. It made Yi Qingluo and Shiju unable to stand stably. Yi Qingluo summoned Shiju back into the pet space and swiftly avoided the falling stones. Her peripheral vision swept past the crack behind her. Yi Qingluo's eyes flashed past a sliver of disbelief and astonishment. That crack was surging with countless waves of jade-green rays, as though it was going to swallow everything in this hole. Oh no! The seal has been unlocked. Miao Yixiong stared at the sky full of jade-green rays, like waves, lingering around the entire hole. His legs felt weak as he laid paralyzed on the ground. Yi Qingluo's eyes were pierced by the jade-green rays. What did Miao Yixiong say? The seal has been broken? In his mind, old man Song's lamenting voice rang out. So, the final layer of the seal requires a husband and wife who possess absolute true feelings as a sacrifice. A freak combination of factors actually undid the Miao tribe's seal. In other words, Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu both jumped into this so-called seal and became sacrifices to break the seal? The Miao tribe had guarded the seal for 700 years. It was unlocked. What exactly is this? Yi Qingluo had yet to finish her question. A majestic pressure completely enveloped her. The jade-green light devoured everything about her. All of his strength seemed to have been sucked out of him. His consciousness gradually faded away. His body weakly fell backwards. But Yi Qingluo didn't feel the pain from falling onto the ground. Her body was embraced into a greeting embrace. Yi Qingluo's breathing paused as she opened her eyes hazily. In his mind, a peerless demonic face of peerless elegance appeared. The man smiled at her. She was like a fox, charming and alluring. Her pink lips moved slightly as she silently spat out two words. Ah Xian, was Ah Xian here? Once again, when she met with a predicament, he was like a deity descending from the heavens. But what entered her nose was an extremely elegant plum fragrance. No, this wasn't Ah Xian's smell. This person wasn't Ah Xian. Yi Qingluo's breathing became hurried. She wanted to struggle, but her entire body had no energy at all. The more anxious she was, the further her consciousness drifted. Ding! A melodious sound was heard from the pendant on Yi Qingluo's neck. Following that, a ray of light flashed out from that pendant. Chapter 2489. Inside the underground cave. Just as Yi Qingluo was engulfed by the jade light, a stone wall in the underground cave was blasted apart by a powerful force. Following that, a tall figure sped over. That pair of ink-like deep eyes saw the young lady who was descending from mid-air. That frozen face revealed a sliver of panic. He speedily went forward and held the young lady's soft body firmly in his arms. He lowered his eyes and gazed deeply at the young lady in his arms. His cold eyes gradually surfaced a sliver of gentleness and deep affection. Yi Qingluo. His voice was low and lingering, as though he was calling out his most beloved person's name, so affectionate. The young lady's slender brows creased slightly. Following that, her pink lips opened and closed as though she wanted to raise her hand to pull him. The young man's eyes were filled with joy as he raised his hand and was about to hold the young lady's hand tightly. But after seeing the shape of the young lady's mouth, the smile on his face slowly faded away. He regained his usual indifference as though he was covered with frost. Zhou Xian. The person she was calling was Zhou Xian. The surrounding jade light was like a wild beast that was brandishing its claws and fangs, swallowing everything. But when the jade light touched the red-robed young man, it avoided him like a snake or scorpion. The jade light swallowed everything in this underground cave. But it forcefully separated the young man. Yiqing Luo. The young man's voice was a little hoarse. He called out Yiqing Luo's name word by word. His voice was cold and emotionless. You are mine, the person in your heart can only be me. The young man muttered softly, his voice was stubborn. He fixed his gaze on the young lady in his arms. His icy cold eyes flashed a sliver of red glow. Suddenly he bent his head and kissed Yiqing Luo's lips. Just at the moment when he bent over. Ding! A crisp sound was heard in the silent underground cave. It was extremely clear. The young man had yet to touch Yiqing Luo's lips. His eyes were stung by the intense white light in front of him. He had no choice but to dodge backwards. He raised his other hand to block his eyes. Bam! A gust of wind from a palm landed on his chest. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels felt like the world was turning upside down and he was in extreme pain. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his body was sent flying. The girl in his arms was also taken away by an invisible force. Yiqing Luo. The young man's cold eyes froze and he didn't even bother to wipe off the blood by the side of his mouth as he immediately flew up and charged towards Yiqing Luo. It was as if the person who had just been slapped and vomited blood was not him at all. In his eyes there was only Yiqing Luo. Zhou Xian, you want to take advantage of my absence to molest my woman? Are you courting death? A mellow voice faintly sounded. When the youth heard this voice, his body froze and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. It was as if he couldn't believe it. How could that person appear here? Green light flickered. Gradually, a tall and straight figure appeared in front of him. His purple robe fluttered and he stood tall and straight. On that peerless face, his thin lips were pursed into a thin line, and his face was filled with displeasure. Just by standing in front of him, Zhou Xian felt a powerful pressure that was continuously exerting on him. Zhou Xian's cold eyes flickered slightly as he slowly met the man's eyes, which could shake everything in the world. Overlord. He spat out the words coldly as his vision shifted as it focused on the unconscious young lady in his arms. Give her to me. The man's deep and handsome face surfaced a sliver of coldness. This overlord's woman naturally has this overlord's protection. She's mine. Zhou Xian didn't give in at all. She has always belonged to me. Zhou Xian's eyes turned slightly cold as he lazily squinted his peach blossom eyes, as his lips curled in disdain. Following that, his finger hooked lightly as he lifted Yiqing Luo's lower jaw. Chapter 2490. A kiss. Not long after. Just purely using his warmth to warm her lips. Zhou Xian raised his eyes as he looked at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yours? Zhou Xian's icy cold expression flashed past a sliver of emotion. In the depths of his deep cold eyes, numerous storms surged. What made him furious was not Zhou Xian's action. But he clearly saw the young lady who was nestled in Zhou Xian's arms. Her brows were relaxed. Furthermore, at the instance when Zhou Xian kissed her, a faint smile surfaced on her face. And when Yiqing Luo was in his arms, she was obviously rejecting him. Even her consciousness was swallowed. Zhou Xian was the only person on her mind. He was unresigned. And unwilling to let go. He had set his mind on Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo must belong to him. Qing Luo. Qing Luo. Chu Wu Exen broke out from the huge hole earlier and a few voices were heard calling out. Following that, a few figures rushed in hurriedly. How is it? Is Qing Luo all right? Did we make it in time? The few people who had just rushed in. When they saw the situation in the hole clearly, they were all stunned on the spot with a dazed look. In front of them, the surging jade light had enveloped everything in the hole. The surroundings were all covered by the jade light. Standing in the middle of the hole, the two people who were completely isolated from the jade light were especially eye-catching. Two men, different types, but both were equally outstanding, both handsome like gods. One evildoer, indolent and noble. Just a simple gaze, a minute movement, it was filled with an invisible pressure. Everything around the plunder. One was cold as ice, domineering and ruthless. It was just a simple gaze, a casual action, but it was enough to send chills down one's spine. What kind of situation was this? Overlord? Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened, and on seeing the man who was hugging Yi Qingluo, she opened her mouth in shock. You're back. Zhou Xian raised his eyes slightly as he squinted at Yan Xiaoyi, not saying a word. How is Qingluo? Is she all right? Why did she faint? Yan Xiaoyi didn't care if the overlord answered her question as she asked worriedly. I'm fine. Zhou Xian lowered his eyes, gently gazing at the young lady in his arms. You don't have to worry. It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Yan Xiaoyi heaved a sigh of relief and her gaze swept the surroundings. Where's that Miao tribe leader? Didn't he also come to this cave? Behind him, a petite figure quickly ran a few steps forward. And where are Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? What happened to them? Tiskti. Zoemo rubbed his chin and clicked his tongue. The power of this seal is quite strong. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been completely devoured by the power of this seal. Miao Yi's delicate body trembled. Impossible. Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu. How could they? He escaped. A low and cold voice rang out indifferently. Everyone's gaze quickly followed the source of the sound. Gui Wu, who had an indifferent expression on his face, calmly said, when it sensed the powerful energy of the seal, a surge of energy escaped from the cave. Is it the Miao Patriarch or Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? Miao Yi's face was pale, her voice trembling. Gui Wu didn't answer her question. Instead he raised a pair of indifferent, emotionless eyes, looking at Zhou Xian without blinking. Chapter 2491. These words caused everyone's hearts to tremble. All of their gazes converged onto Zhou Xian in unison. Not the overlord? Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that she swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then, who is he? He's still carrying our Qingluo. Qiao Jin held onto Yan Xiaoyi's shoulders, his face also full of shock. It's undoubtedly Lord Dizun. Even if someone could disguise as Lord Dizun, but this temperament besides Lord Dizun, who else could it be? Zhu Wu Xin fixed his eyes on Zhou Xian. A pair of cold eyes without any warmth. You are not him. His words were cold and emotionless. However, Zhu Wuxian's tightly pursed thin lips seemed to have turned into thin ice, betraying his anger at this moment. The glint in Zhou Xian's eyes seemed to be filled with a faint trace of ridicule. He narrowed his peach blossom eyes and laughed in a low voice. I am not him, so you think you have the right to touch Lil Luo'er? You are not him and she is not yours, Zhu Wu Xin spat out coldly. His eyes were ice cold. Zhou Xian wasn't shaken by his aura but instead laughed lightly. So, you also admit that Lil Luo is this lord's woman? Zhu Wu Xian's expression turned stiff as he stared coldly at Zhou Xian. He knitted his brows tightly, already having doubts in his heart. This person could not possibly not be Zhou Xian. No one in the world could imitate such a temperament. Old man Gui Wu, if you don't make your words clear, this lord will not be able to explain. Zhou Xian raised his brows as he looked at Gui Wu, who had an indifferent expression. Master Gui Wu, what's going on? Is he really the venerable overlord? Lord Gui Wu, don't leave us hanging. You're making us nervous. Qiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi anxiously looked towards Gui Wu. Gui Wu indifferently raised his eyes before calmly saying, and he doesn't count. What do you mean by not considered? Yan Xiaoyi was about to die from anxiety due to Gui Wu. He's only a clone of Dizun and not the real Dizun. Gui Wu finally said the second half of the sentence. However, the few of them were somewhat dumbfounded. What was a doppelganger? What do you mean it's not my main body? The overlord should have extracted a strand of his consciousness and placed it in an object on Yi Qingluo's body. At specific times, this consciousness will turn into the overlord's clone and replace the overlord to protect Yi Qingluo. Gui Wu explained in a rare patient manner. His gaze was like a torch as he stared straight at Zhou Xian. But extracting one's consciousness and transforming it into a doppelganger, not only will it consume more than half of one's profound energy, if the doppelganger suffers any damage, the main body will also suffer the same injury. Think he is. Hearing Gui Wu's words, Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that she was unable to regain her senses. He can be called a venerable sovereign, but he's just a clone of a venerable sovereign. Gui Wu continued Yan Xiaoyi's words. For the overlord to be able to do so much for student Yiqing Luo, I can tell that he really dotes on student Yiqing Luo. This was more than just being doted on. He was practically using his life to pamper her. The place the overlord was going to this time was the upper realm. The upper realm that was filled with experts. The overlord had even consumed more than half of his Xian energy. If the overlord was in the upper realm and accidentally discovered that he had consumed more than half of his Xian energy, wouldn't he take the opportunity to make a move on the overlord? It was impossible for the overlord not to have thought of these problems. But in order to ensure Qing Luo's safety, he resolutely chose to take the risk himself. They were so touched that they were about to cry. After listening to Gui Wu's explanation, everyone's feelings were different. Chapter 2492. Zhu Wu Exin stared at Dmo Xian's face without blinking. His eyes flickered with a strange glint. Just as he was about to bend his head to kiss Yiqing Luo, the pendant on Yiqing Luo's neck surged with a terrifying energy. Dmo Xian's consciousness. It was hidden on the pendant that Yiqing Luo wore. Actually, used this kind of method to stay by Yiqing Luo's side. His hands, which were hanging by the side of his body, clenched tightly into fists. Everyone was moved and envied the couple in front of him. It stung his eyes. That young lady was obviously in his arms. She was clearly his girl. On what basis did Dmo Xian beat him to it? He didn't like Dmo Xian. Didn't like to see Dmo Xian hugging Yiqing Luo. Didn't like to see Yiqing Luo in Dmo Xian's arms, that relaxed look. Didn't like those people who treated Dmo Xian as Yiqing Luo's lover, denying his identity. Dmo Xian acutely sensed the intense resentment emitting from Zhu Wu Exin. He tightened his grip on the person in his arms as he squinted his long peach blossom eyes. Zhu Wu Exin, you know very well that the person Lil Luo chose is me. If you really love Lil Luo, then you should respect Lil Luo's choice. He paused as his lips curled into a smile. Isn't it said that if you really love someone, it is to see her happiness? Lil Luo and me together is happiness. That smile was filled with provocation. Zhu Wu Exin's pupils constricted as his deep and cold eyes shot out an icy chill directly towards Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian's brows rose as the smile on his lips grew wider. If you insist on getting Lil Luo, disregarding her wishes, then do you think you're fit to use the word love to express your feelings towards Lil Luo? I don't love her. An icy cold word was spat out from Zhu Wu Exin's mouth. The person she chose is me. Dmo Xian sneered. Are you lying to yourself? She said that she will marry me, then she must keep to the promise between us. She promised me that she is mine, Zhu Wuxin said stubbornly. Every word he said was filled with a sense of danger. Dmo Xian frowned slightly when he heard that. He also knew that for someone as stubborn as Zhu Wuxin, nothing he said would be able to change his deep-rooted beliefs. He could not be bothered to waste his breath on Zhu Wuxin. Lil Luo, also did not have time to waste here. He lowered his eyes and looked tenderly at the disguised face of the person in his arms. He didn't lift his eyelids, but the person he was talking to was obviously Zhu Wu Exin. Lil Luo, is this Lord's woman, no matter if it's this lifetime or the next lifetime. Forever and ever she will always be my Dmo Xian's woman. You will never have this chance. I won't let go. Zhu Wu Exin's eyes were gloomy and cold as his deep eyes gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo. Soon after, he turned around and walked towards the huge hole that he came from without looking back. In an instant, Zhu Wuxin's aura disappeared from the cave. Yan Xiaoyi and the others were still in a daze towards this baffling fight for Yiqing Luo battle, which ended in such a baffling manner. Yan Xiaoyi blinked as she recalled Zhu Wu Exin's unemotional denial earlier. He doesn't love Qing Luo? That look of his. Doesn't it look like he doesn't love Qing Luo? Ever since he found out that Yiqing Luo trespassed into the Miao tribe alone. Until he found out that Yiqing Luo had fallen into the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds, the dangerous sealed grounds. Chapter 2493. Zhu Wu Exin, that madman, he simply released his perception like a madman and followed Miao clan leader, using brute force along the way to break through 1,000 meters deep hole, rushing over here to save Qing Luo? He actually said he doesn't love Qing Luo? Who is he trying to bluff? Recalling Zhu Wu Exin's craziness earlier, Yan Xiaoyi was still feeling a lingering fear. Zhu Wu Exin could be said to be at the stage where he didn't even care about his life. This lord will thank him on behalf of Lil Luo. Xian spoke calmly as he raised his eyes in warning. Xianxia felt a chill down her spine as she sniggered a few times and replied in an extremely quick-witted manner. I know. Overlord, I will absolutely not tell Qing Luo about this matter. Qing Luo doesn't owe that madman Zhu Wuxian any favor. Xian nodded his head in satisfaction. Overlord, the split body cannot exist for too long. It will affect the original body greatly, especially in this place. You'd better return to your original body first. The silent ghost martial artist opened his mouth once again. When Kitty Lee heard that, she immediately walked towards Xian as she opened her arms wide. Overlord brother-in-law, hand sister over to Kitty Lee. Quickly return to your original body. If sister knows that you hurt your body because of her, she will be upset. However, Xian hugged Qing Luo and avoided her. No worries. He spoke in a low and hoarse voice as he gazed at the person in his arms as his brows were filled with longing. This lord misses her. Sister misses you too. Kitty Lee blinked her spirited black eyes as she spoke in a serious tone. So Overlord brother-in-law, quickly come back, don't let sister keep missing you. The arm which was hugging the young lady tightened once again. Kitty Lee didn't notice Xian's emotional changes. She only told Overlord brother-in-law everything that she knew in her heart. She still wanted to say something. But her petite body was suddenly pulled by a strong force as she fell backwards. Kitty Lee cried out in shock as she wanted to struggle. But her body fell into a boiling hot embrace. A seductive voice laughed softly beside her ear. Little wild cat, don't bother about Overlord's matters. This lord misses you too. Zoemo, you frivolous man. Kitty Lee's cheeks flushed red the moment she smelled the familiar bamboo fragrance. Zoemo narrowed his red phoenix eyes and stared at the shy kitten in his arms. His smile became more and more playful. Pisky, you look like a red apple. It seems that the little wild cat also misses me very much. Who missed you? Kitty Lee struggled with a red face and scratched him with her claws. However, her hands were locked in Zomo's embrace. He smiled mischievously. Your face is filled with the words miss me, miss me, miss me. Kitty didn't. Kitty Lee's cheeks turned even redder. She stopped scratching Zoemo and raised her hands to cover her face. This indirectly proved how much she missed Zoe. Enough, you too. Xianxia looked at the dog food which was stuffed into her mouth unknowingly. Qing Luo is still unconscious. The both of you please be more serious. Kitty Lee used her hand to knock the man behind her. Did you hear that? I asked you to be more serious. Zoemo smiled as he lowered his head and kissed her face. All right, this lord is serious. Serious, your big head. Kitty Lee's face turned even redder. Chapter 2494. Xian seemed as though he hadn't heard Xianxia's words. His gaze was fixated on the person in his arms. A pair of watery peach blossom eyes. Lingering with infinite tenderness. Xiaoyi's stretched out hand quietly retracted back under this atmosphere. Qiao Jin sighed softly as he held Xiaoyi's shoulder and comforted her softly. Forget it, Overlord has been separated from Qing Luo for such a long time, and earlier he was agitated by Zhu Wuxian, so naturally he can't bear to leave Qing Luo. But his original body. Xiaoyi looked at Xian worriedly. Overlord has his own sense of propriety. Qiao Jin patted Xiaoyi's shoulder. From what I see, the moment he saw student Yi Qing Luo, he had already lost his sense of propriety. Gui Wu's indifferent voice interrupted Qiao Jin's consolation. His gaze looked straight at Xian. Overlord, you should be very clear that this is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. Gui Wu's voice was very calm, but the meaning in his words was hair-raising. The seal's power is getting stronger and stronger. Going against the seal's power will only exhaust a large amount of your doppelganger's power, and your original body will also suffer the same amount of damage. Everyone's gazes instantly congealed on Xian. Overlord, you and Qing Luo still have a lot of time. Go back first. We will definitely take good care of Qing Luo and will absolutely not let any other man get close to her. When Xiaoyi heard that, she instantly panicked. When Qing Luo regained consciousness, to know that Xian not only left his doppelganger by her side, he even exhausted his power to go against the Miao tribe seal's power. Wouldn't his heart ache to death? Gui Wu. Xian didn't reply Xiaoyi but shifted his gaze onto Gui Wu as he spoke in a calm tone. I'll have to trouble you to bring them away from here. Gui Wu frowned slightly. You're not intending to leave? Zhou Xian looked at the person in his arms and nodded indifferently. Gui Wu didn't persuade him but really followed Zhou Xian's intention as he turned around and walked towards the hole which Xu Wu Xen used his brute force to blast open. Zhou Mo hooked Kitty Li's slender waist. Little wildcat, let's go. Kitty Li slapped his hand hard. Didn't you hear what Master Gui Wu said? If Di Zun's brother-in-law didn't leave this place, it would consume his strength. How could Kitty leave my sister and Di Zun and brother-in-law behind? Silly Kitty, with Di Zun here your sister will be fine. Zhou Mo pinched Kitty Li's pretty face. No. Kitty Li's attitude was firm. She would never leave when her sister was in danger. I won't leave either. Yan Xiaoyi pursed her lips. Gui Wu stood at the entrance of the cave and said impatiently, It's fine if you don't want to leave. Di Zun wants to die but I don't. I don't have that much energy and I don't need to waste my own strength. From the moment these people entered the underground cave, it was the barrier set up by the ghost marshal that was able to block the devouring power of the surrounding seal. Kitty Li and Yan Xiaoyi spoke at the same time. Zhou Xian interrupted the both of them. This is little Luo Er's opportunity. The Bu family village's 2 elders used their own lives to open up this opportunity for little Luo. As for the rest, little Luo Er needs to complete it himself. Opportunity? Yan Xiaoyi and the others were stunned. Leave this place with Gui Wu, I will take care of little Luo Er's safety. Saying that, Zhou Xian carried Yiqing Luo as he turned around and walked directly towards the crack which was surging with jade green light. Chapter 2495. Yiqing Luo's consciousness was still in a daze, unable to gather. She felt that her entire body was floating as though she was a feather. Lil Luo Er. Beside her ear was that familiar calling voice. That voice was filled with lingering love. It made her heart feel sweet for no reason. She wanted to open her mouth to respond to that person's call. But her lips seemed to be stuck tightly together. She had no way to open her mouth. Lil Luo Er. Lil Luo Er. Lil Luo Er. The calling voice was still going on. Sometimes it was far away, sometimes it was close at hand. However, the emotions contained in each voice were stronger than the last. Who was it? Who was calling her? She wanted to open her eyes. She wanted to open her mouth to call the person who was calling her. But her entire body was unable to move. She could only allow her body to float up and down, float, float. Float. That calling voice became softer and softer. Gradually she couldn't hear the voice anymore. Couldn't hear it. She couldn't hear it anymore. Suddenly Yiqing Luo's heart twitched fiercely. A piercing pain made Yiqing Luo give a dull moan. The next moment she felt that her feather-like body was being tugged by something fiercely. Her body finally had a sense of reality. Finally had a sense of weight. Following that, a warm touch warmed her pink lips which were stuck together, unable to open no matter what. The elegant sandalwood fragrance filled her nostrils. First was a simple touch. Following that, it was a series of violent attacks. The scorching aura started to rise. Yiqing Luo's feather-like body, at the same time as the temperature of her body rose, gradually had a real sense of reality. She was no longer like a feather, drifting with the wind. Her consciousness was no longer in a trance without any feeling. The sandalwood fragrance's smell became thicker and thicker. Her entire being was almost corroded by this sandalwood fragrance. Her entire body was restless and the scorching feeling made her subconsciously react accordingly. Lil Luo Er. This time the voice entered her ears extremely clearly. Right beside her ears as though it was whispering the world's only treasure, extremely pampering. Yiqing Luo's heart melted. Hence. Under this fierce attack Yiqing Luo gradually regained her senses. Xian. A hoarse voice spilled out from Yiqing Luo's pink lips with difficulty. She could finally control her body. Overjoyed, she was just about to call out the man's name. Unbeknownst to her, the man's large palm had already reached for her belt. He gently pulled. His robe loosened. Yiqing Luo suddenly shuddered and her half-dazed mind suddenly cleared up at this moment. The next moment she opened her eyes. What entered her eyes was a pair of bottomless, inky eyes. In his inky black eyes, sparks of fire were burning. Some kind of emotion was very obvious. Before she could open her mouth, her lips were ruthlessly sealed again. The man's familiar face was deeply reflected in her eyes. Her heart was pounding. Her hands instinctively clenched his collar. Ah Xian, it really was Ah Xian. She wasn't dreaming. Ah Xian, he really came back. The thick longing instantly eroded Yiqing Luo's heart. The corner of her eyes gradually became wet. Perhaps it was because of the longing for Zhou Xian. Or perhaps it was because of Zhou Xian's fierce kiss. Suddenly Yiqing Luo, who was indulged in the longing for Zhou Xian, suddenly widened her eyes, her cheeks flushed red. She raised her hand and grabbed a certain disobedient hand. She wanted to stop it. But the man kissed her even more fiercely. Chapter 2496. But Zhou Xian's hand became more honest. Little Luo, after a long time the man slowly let her go. He murmured Yiqing Luo's name as he rested his head on her neck. Xianxia's voice was low and hoarse as it revealed infinite affection. I miss you so much. The man didn't conceal his feelings at all, which made Yiqing Luo unable to raise her temper. She blamed him for kissing her till she couldn't breathe when she just woke up. She snorted angrily, showing her delicate side. She slowly raised her weak hands and wrapped them around his sturdy waist. I missed you too. The man's arms around her body tightened. His face, rubbed against her neck, his warm breath, slowly awakened Yiqing Luo's sensitivity. They embraced for a moment. In Zhou Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo felt especially at ease. His body also gradually relaxed. Have you settled everything in the upper realm? You won't leave, right? She nestled in his embrace, her voice soft and coquettish. You stinky heartless man. You abandoned me for half a month. We're separated by a great plain. Even if I missed you, I couldn't contact you. The hard body of the man who was carrying her suddenly stiffened. Yiqing Luo acutely felt it. She bit her lower lip and placed her hands on his chest. He pushed it slightly. The man's head left her shoulder. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and stared at him without blinking. You still want to leave? Zhou Xian's fingertips twined around a strand of her hair. He lowered his head and kissed her hair. I'm sorry. It was a tacit agreement. He would leave again. He would be lying if he said he wasn't sad. But looking at the fatigue in Zhou Xian's brows, that face filled with longing, his eyes filled with tenderness. No matter how unhappy Yiqing Luo was, neither of them could bring themselves to be angry. She missed Zhou Xian. How would Zhou Xian not miss her? She believed that if it was possible, Zhou Xian would absolutely want to stick together with her at any moment, to become a conjoined twins. But he couldn't. He was not only the venerable sovereign of the Nirvana realm. There was also another layer, an even more noble identity. A long time ago she had often heard people talking about it. The greater one's ability, the greater the responsibility. Although to Zhou Xian, what happened to others had nothing to do with him. However, with his strength and status he would not allow himself to be willful. Even if it had nothing to do with him. I have to get involved too. Look at the tiredness in his eyes. Look at the dark circles under his eyes. It was clearly for his responsibility, so that he could meet her as soon as possible. That was why he was so desperate. How could she bear to blame Zhou Xian? Her heart ached for Zhou Xian. But, in Zhou Xian's eyes, that was Lil Luo's silence was definitely because she was blaming him. Lil Luo, don't stay silent, hit me if you're unhappy. I'll let you hit me, don't ignore me. Zhou Xian grabbed Yiqing Luo's little hand and swung it towards his face. Zhou Xian, who had never coaxed a woman before. The Zhou Xian who could flirt with Yiqing Luo in minutes. At this moment he was like a child who had done something wrong, using such a childish method to coax Yiqing Luo. She was really angry at the bottom of her heart. At this moment they would probably be so amused that they would vanish into thin air. Alright, stop fooling around. Yiqing Luo forcefully retracted her hand. How could she bear to hit him? Who asked me to choose such an outstanding man? What else can I do? Even if he's kneeling, I'll still pamper him. Yiqing Luo's words made Zhou Xian stunned. Why did these words sound so strange? But her heart was filled with sweetness. Chapter 2497. Stop. Stop. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and covered the man's lips. The scorching lips were imprinted on her palm. The scorching sensation made her feel as though she had touched a burning flame. Her cheeks were once again dyed crimson red. Stop fooling around, where are we now? Yiqing Luo glared at him coquettishly, her brows were filled with a young lady's charm. Only in front of Zhou Xian. And only Zhou Xian alone could see this Yiqing Luo. Ah Xian, do you know where we are? While Yiqing Luo was talking to Zhou Xian, she sized up the surroundings. As far as the eye could see, it was an empty piece of jade light. Apart from the jade green light there was nothing else. Just as Yiqing Luo pulled Zhou Xian and looked around. Not sure if it was her misconception. Somehow, Zhou Xian's body stiffened slightly for a moment. She was stunned as she turned back to look at Zhou Xian in puzzlement. What she met was a pair of peach blossom eyes filled with warmth. His thin lips curved into an extremely shallow arc and his gaze was deep and serene, as if he wanted to imprint her deeply into his mind. Yiqing Luo's heart had an inexplicable fluster. She instinctively grabbed Zhou Xian's collar tightly. Slender fingers hooked onto his. Ah Xian, are you hiding something from me? She understood her man too well. Zhou Xian must have something to hide from her. Moreover, this matter was related to her and this piece of jade light world. Zhou Xian didn't answer. Under the light, the man's deep and handsome face revealed a hazy and dreamy brilliance. She couldn't see clearly the expression on his face. The only thing she could see was the deep affection and pampering in his eyes. Ah Xian. Not waiting for a reply, Yiqing Luo's heart instantly panicked. The hand that held Zhou Xian tightened even more. After a long time in the jade light, the man's magnetic voice rang beside her ear. Nothing. He spat out 2 words. Lowering his head, his warm breath slowly seeped into her earlobe. The young lady's petite body uncontrollably trembled slightly. Her grip on his collar loosened as well. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. Zhou Xian gently held her hand as he explained in a gentle voice. His heart was beating normally. His voice was also very normal. It was as if that moment of shock and speechlessness was just an illusion. Yiqing Luo's arms wrapped tightly around his waist. She inhaled the sandalwood fragrance from his body. Only then did he slowly calm himself down. The 2 elders of the Bu family used their own lives to open the seal of the Miao tribe's forbidden land for you. Zhou Xian felt the breathing of the young lady in his arms, gradually becoming smoother, and between his brows, a trace of a relieved smile flashed past. His large palm gently patted the girl's delicate back. His eyes were quiet and unblinking, almost greedily looking at everything about her. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened at the mention of the Bu family's 2 elders. Her little hands tightened as she clasped onto Zhou Xian's wrist and raised her head from his embrace. This is the inside of the seal? She remembered when the emerald light had covered the sky and covered the earth. Miao Yixiong shouted that the seal was unlocked. Following that, her consciousness was swallowed by the power of the seal. In the end, she seemed to have sensed Zhou Xian's arrival. Zhou Xian had rushed over in time to save her, and even brought her to the inside of the seal. Chapter 2498. Yiqing Luo didn't understand the deeper meaning behind Zhou Xian's words. The next moment she felt her body turning light. A heavy kiss landed on her lips. The man's breathing was heavy as he bit down harshly. Yiqing Luo frowned in pain as she raised her fist to push him. But before she could even raise her hand, the man had already loosened his grip on her. Luo, wait for me to come back. A light and ethereal voice floated in his ears. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled as she steadied herself and immediately stretched out her hand to grab Zhou Xian. But there was only air in her hand. The jade-green light enveloped and the man's purple robe was faintly discernible. His handsome face was filled with reluctance to part with her. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo grabbed Zhou Xian once again as her tone was anxious. But her hand couldn't touch Zhou Xian at all. As the jade-green light grew stronger, the man's figure started to dissipate. I miss you so. I will return to your side immediately. The last silent sentence was clearly transmitted into Yiqing Luo's ears. Ah Xian. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo shouted Zhou Xian's name loudly. But what pounced forward was still air. The man's figure had completely disappeared before her eyes. Only a faint sandalwood fragrance was left, proving that he had indeed existed. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo stared blankly at the direction where Zhou Xian disappeared. Her legs turned soft as she knelt on the ground. Her eyes were empty as she frowned, not understanding what was going on. Why? He was still fine earlier, telling each other how much they missed each other. He even passionately did that kind of thing. Why did it suddenly disappear? He said there was something important to her in this seal. But what was it? Could it be more important than him? Rumble. Suddenly, a thunderous roar resounded in his ears. Following that, Yiqing Luo's body shook violently. The ground beneath her feet was shaking. Yiqing Luo was shocked. She immediately steadied herself as she surveyed the surroundings vigilantly. Under the boundless jade light, Yiqing Luo totally couldn't see what kind of earth-shaking and mountain-shaking scene was. She could feel the ground beneath her feet cracking open with a shwa 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 sound. But even if he lowered his head to look, what entered his eyes was a green light. He felt like she was in a green space. He couldn't see heaven and earth, he couldn't see everything. But the cracking feeling under his feet was especially obvious. At the same time, one of her feet stepped on empty air and she staggered. She followed her instincts and moved her feet. Old man Tsong, just what is this place? While following the aura, she quickly avoided the area where the ground had split open while contacting Old Man Tsong. However, her connection with Old Man Tsong seemed to have been cut off. She couldn't sense the aura within the azure dew bracelet at all. Boom. Another dull rumble rang out. Compared to before, the tremor was even more intense. The rumbling seemed to come from under his feet. Yiqing Luo was swayed so much that she almost lost her footing, swaying left and right to maintain her own balance. Hiss. A piercing buzzing sound shook Yiqing Luo's eardrums. Her brain was pierced by waves of pain. Yiqing Luo's slender brows tightened as she felt the feeling of the ground splitting open. She leaped up and quickly rolled backwards. Bam! Her back bumped into something hard. That hard feeling Yiqing Luo couldn't use words to describe. Chapter 2499. Damn it! What the hell was this place? Zhou Xian, that bastard. After bringing her here, he disappeared on his own. Even if she were to meet with any opportunities here, he still had to make it clear to her. Now she was in a state of complete confusion. Yiqing Luo's eyebrows twitched in pain. She shifted her body and stretched out her hand to touch behind her. When she touched it, it was a hard and cold thing. It was very smooth, but at a distance there would be some bumps. Very hard, very hard. Yiqing Luo was confident that she could break a wall with one punch. But when she touched this thing, Yiqing Luo could conclude that this thing was even sturdier than those Supreme Being grade or God grade armors. Suddenly that hard thing seemed to move. The ear-piercing buzz in her ears once again shook her eardrums. Hiss, hiss, an extremely close distance. Yiqing Luo felt that her eardrums were about to burst. She subconsciously raised her hand and covered her ears. But her hand, once that dog left that hard thing, her body suddenly felt light. Her feet seemed to have stepped on empty air and instantly fell down. F***K. This series of changes made Yiqing Luo unable to hold back and burst out a vulgar word. What if King Husky? This was a piece of jade green space. She couldn't see anything clearly. She couldn't sense anything. She was completely unable to determine how long this kind of fall would last. She had just fallen into a 1,000-meter hole. Now it was here again. Life or death unknown. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to complain or complain. She took a deep breath and forced herself to concentrate, gathering the profound energy into her legs, ready to land safely. Roar, roar, roar. An earth-shattering roar went straight to the 9 heavens. The familiar sound made Yiqing Luo's concentration stagnate. Chi-Chi. Did she hear it wrongly? Why did she seem to hear Chi-Chi's tiger roar? Roar. As if responding to her words, the wild roar was heard once again. Following that, her body was caught by a ball of soft fur. Chi-Chi. Is it really you? Yiqing Luo's hands hugged the soft thing beneath her, the familiar smell and touch. It was indeed Chi-Chi. Master. The childish voice was indeed Chi-Chi's voice. Yiqing Luo sat properly on Chi-Chi's back. Why did you come out? How is your body? Old Man Song said that you and Qian are asleep because you are evolving. What do you think? Chi-Chi, whom he had not seen for a long time, finally appeared in front of him again. Yiqing Luo was extremely touched. A piece of his heart was finally put down. Qian, it woke up too? We're all fine. It's all thanks to Master's heaven-returning nether pill. Chi-Chi smiled and wagged his tail. We don't need little Chi here. Chi-Chi will protect Master. Yiqing Luo rubbed Chi-Chi's back. Chi-Chi, do you know what this place is? I don't know. Chi-Chi answered its master's question honestly. It carried Yiqing Luo on its back as it ran forward aimlessly and said, but here. There's a very familiar scent. If Chi-Chi didn't smell wrongly, Master will be able to see your new companion very soon. New companion? Chi-Chi's words made Yiqing Luo slightly stunned. In her mind, the image of Qi-Yan suddenly appeared. A thought gradually formed in her mind. Chapter 2500. She didn't know how long Chi-Chi had been running with her. Yiqing Luo only saw a piece of green in front of her. She didn't know where Chi-Chi had taken her. Master, do you feel it? Chi-Chi seemed to be very excited, its tail kept swaying. The strength was so great that Yiqing Luo could feel the wind from the swaying tail. Yiqing Luo said that she didn't feel anything except the wind. Chi-Chi's mood suddenly lost a lot. You really don't feel it? Yiqing Luo face-bombed. What did Xiao-Qi want her to feel? Could it be a call prompt? Chi-Chi leaped and seemed to be circling around something, striding its limbs again. Strange, how could Master not feel it? After several laps, Yiqing Luo expressed a face of confusion. You stupid tiger. A clear voice sounded out of thin air. Chi-Chi's tiger body shook. Little Chi-Chi. If you say Chi-Chi is stupid, Chi-Chi will. Chi-Chi's little voice was soft and cute. After holding it for a long time, Yiqing Luo thought that Chi-Chi would fight back with great lethality. Only to hear Chi-Chi roaring angrily, Chi-Chi also wants to call you stupid bird. Yiqing Luo. My Chi-Chi is amazing, worthy of being her family's pure and lovely little thing. I said you are stupid, you still don't admit it? Qi-Yan's disdainful voice with arrogance. What do you want the ugly woman to feel? She is not a sacred beast. Yiqing Luo. She had already become her war pet. Could she show some respect to her as a war pet? Chi-Chi whispered woo-woo, seemed to be very wronged by Qi-Yan's scolding. The woman who was ignored by the two sacred beasts cleared her throat and rubbed Chi-Chi's head with her little hand. Don't talk in riddles, what do I need to do? Let's hurry up. Listening to the conversation between Chi-Chi and Qi-Yan. Obviously these two people knew where they were. Qi-Yan snorted, his tone was full of disgust. Stupid tiger, don't follow the ugly woman, just throw her down. Qi-Yan didn't show up, still in the pet space. But just listening to its tone, Yiqing Luo could almost imagine the arrogant and disdainful look on Qi-Yan's face. Yiqing Luo expressed that as the owner of a Tsundere war pet, it was really too sad. Throw her off? Was he going to enjoy the thrill of falling from a high altitude again and not knowing when he would land? Chi-Chi, don't be influenced by Qiao-Jiao. My Chi-Chi loves you the most. Yiqing Luo was just about to hug Chi-Chi's neck to express Chi-Chi's gentleness and not to be in cahoots with a certain arrogant bird. However, before he could finish his words, her body felt light and then she fell from the sky as she was familiar with it. Chi-Chi really threw her down from her back. Didn't you say not to learn bad things from Qiao-Jiao? Why was Chi-Chi so obedient to Qiao-Jiao? Yiqing Luo had yet to gather her profound energy again. Then he felt a powerful force coming down on him. Her pupils reflected an extremely gorgeous green brilliance. Bang! That ray of jade light fiercely crashed onto Yiqing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo only felt a strong numbing pain all over her body. Her vision turned black and she fainted. Chi-Chi, who was standing by the side, stared at Yiqing Luo, who was wrapped in a piece of jade light, worriedly. The current Yiqing Luo, suspended in midair. Numerous jade lights entangled her bit by bit. Chapter 2501. It's all right. Qi-Yan replied indifferently. If she can't even bear this bit of power, then what qualifications does she have to be our master? Chi-Chi's eyes widened as it shook its head in disapproval. Little Chi-Chi, what you said is wrong. No matter what master is or how powerful she is Chi-Chi's master. It was not because of its master's ability that it became its master's battle pet. It really liked its master. It was willing to stay by its master's side and protect her. Qi-Yan didn't speak again for a moment. Chi-Chi was a little angry because of what Qi-Yan said earlier and didn't want to bother with Qi-Yan anymore. It stared at its master without blinking. Like a knight guarding its master. Yiqing Luo was in a daze. She only felt that there was a voice in her mind constantly clamoring. She wanted to hear clearly whose voice it was. But that voice was illusory and she couldn't hear it clearly. The only thing she could be sure of was, it was that voice that kept calling her name. There seemed to be something in her chest like a whirlpool fiercely stirring. Following that, she felt as if something had surged into her body. Her whole body was swollen and painful. She groaned in pain. The clamoring in her mind became louder and noisier at this moment. What was that voice saying? Why did it keep calling her name? In a daze, Yiqing Luo saw a dash of jade light, flickering in front of her eyes. She frowned, trying to see more clearly. But she only saw that wisp of jade light, turned into jade fog, slowly seeping into her heart. At the same time, a surge of majestic power like an avalanche filled her limbs and bones. The heaven and earth's spiritual qi crazily swam in her body. Ah! Yiqing Luo cried out in pain from the impact of this surging power. The next moment she suddenly opened her eyes. Her body was like a spring sitting upright. The moment she opened her eyes, a ray of jade light shot out from her eyes. Vaster! Seeing Yiqing Luo open her eyes, Chi immediately went forward, its tiger eyes looking at Yiqing Luo. However, Yiqing Luo didn't have the energy to answer it. The moment she opened her eyes, she noticed the changes in her body. She quickly sat down cross-legged. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the barrier of advancement. Ever since she advanced to the sky profound realm, no matter how much heaven and earth spiritual energy she absorbed, no matter how fast her profound strength grew, she couldn't even advance. And this time, he had been stuck at the profound rank for so long. Finally, there were signs of advancement. Was this the opportunity that Zhou Xian had mentioned? Numerous profound energy was guided by Yiqing Luo in his body, as it flowed bit by bit. The majestic and turbulent energy was getting stronger and stronger. It was like a whirlpool that came one after another. Boom! In Yiqing Luo's mind, a sudden clap of thunder exploded. The profound energy that was swirling around his body shook as well. Following that, it slowly merged into Yiqing Luo's body. Everything in the surroundings gradually regained its tranquility. Yiqing Luo's breathing also calmed down. She slowly opened her eyes. Her enchanting eyes twinkled, causing her disguised face to look even more dazzling. She exhaled a breath of foul air. Her entire body was filled with a refreshing feeling. Vaster! Chi cried out in joy, striding forward on its four limbs as it flew to Yiqing Luo's side. No wonder she was its master.